Do you think Boris Johnson simply saying, I wasn't there, is enough? When it seems to me one of the main people in coordinating a lot of these gatherings was Martin Reynolds, who was his personal private secretary.
Oh, yeah, if Martin Reynolds had ever worked for me, I think he'd have been out of the door. PDQ, I think the idea of a very senior civil servant actually issuing invitations for parties and saying things like, I think we got away with it. That is outrageous, outrageous. I'm not going to defend anything that went on. Let me cut your questions short, if I may, Alex. I'm not going to defend anything that went on. It was outrageous. But there's very little that's new in this report. We can read the emails and the WhatsApp and so on, and perhaps quite enjoy doing that. But in the sum total of things, you know, it's May 2022. It doesn't matter anymore. It's done. It's dusted. And vastly more important matters are on the Prime Minister's desk, and I would much prefer the Cabinet to be paying attention to those.
Tom Slater, you work for the website Spiked. I mean, as Edwina Currie says, we know a lot of what was already in this report. Martin Reynolds, Alex mentioned the principal private secretary who wrote that email saying we might have got away with it. He resigned anyway back in February. It seems a lot of the sting's been taken out of this, certainly among people in the Westminster Village, even though there will be people around the country who remain furious, incandescent, given what they went through during lockdown, given the rules that they adhered to.
Oh, definitely. But I think they'll have already made their minds up about Boris Johnson and about this whole Partygate scandal. We've known about the worst of it for a very long time, the garden party at the height of lockdown, you know, where they just announced you can meet one person outside. People remember this, but I can't be the only person who was looking at this 6 months into this inquiry, into these various investigations now, and thinking that this just needs to stop. I mean, it's quite clear that Boris Johnson isn't going to resign. It's quite clear that his MPs have given him a stay of execution because they've got no viable alternative, and the public have made their mind up and will make their judgment at the next election. I just don't see how continuing to hammer this in the hopes of forcing a resignation is healthy at this point. It really does feel like it's just about, again, people who want to get rid of Boris Johnson continuing to try to exact that. That's up to them. But surely as a country, we should move on at this point.
Yeah, I want to go back to Edwina on this. I mean, Tom seems to be echoing what you just said there. What is the use in continuing to beat the government up over bygones when there are big issues taking place? But surely now Boris Johnson is likely to face the Parliamentary Privileges Committee, who will be looking at the fact of whether or not he misled Parliament. And he was the one who reinvigorated the ministerial code when he came to office in 2019, when he took the top office in the country, and, you know, said himself that basically, that it was essential to win back the trust of the public, and that a big part of that was going to be about accountability, transparency, honesty and leadership. And in the ministerial code, he makes himself the final arbiter of these things. Do you think now that he is going to be subject to a process that could well find him falling on his own sword?
Well, let's hope it all applies in exactly the same way to Sir Keir Starmer, who I think has taken the moral high ground on all of this and may well wish in weeks to come that he hadn't done that. I tell you what, I'm much more interested in what is happening in Ukraine. I have a Ukrainian family staying here. I'm much more interested in what is happening with the cost of living crisis. You know, most of the people I talk to are more worried about paying the gas bill than what the Prime Minister drank months, years ago, and then really not interested in the inside politics of the civil service. You know, some of the people who are going to be cross will include people like other civil servants who didn't go to parties and who worked very, very hard indeed. But in the end, you know, our institutions, all our institutions have taken a hell of a bashing in recent years. The Metropolitan Police, of which my husband was for many, many years, for over 30 years, a distinguished member. Parliament itself, the expenses scandal, which affected all the parliamentarians, a whole host of things. In the end, of course, if you look at results, what you find is we came out of COVID with the best vaccine programme in the world. We are coming through the whole energy crisis with the most diverse energy programme that Europe has seen. We are helping in Ukraine in a way that everybody in Ukraine is saying thank you. They're thrilled to bits that we are actually leading the pack on that. There are a whole host of other issues that I want to see carry forward. I couldn't give a toss what a bunch of MPs actually says or does or reports again on this, it demonstrates that they haven't got their act together. They haven't got their priorities. They really ought to be concentrating on other issues, which are much more important for the life of the country, for the freedom of Europe, and for the welfare of our citizens.
A Conservative MP for, I think, about 14 years. The Prime Minister will be facing the 1922 committee about 5 p.m. this evening, the Tory backbenchers. What sort of reception do you think he'll get? I was surprised that so far in the Commons, when he was making his statement, there were almost no big Tory beast backbenchers there. No Theresa May, no David Davis, no Steve Baker. Where were they?
Oh, hooray. Hooray. I mean, I don't think Theresa May has covered herself in glory in recent weeks. There's something a bit tacky about a retired Prime Minister standing up and criticising the existing Prime Minister. She knows perfectly well how difficult the job is, and she ought to be giving him some support. It would have been very nice indeed if she had been there and said, Mr. Speaker, does the House share my view that perhaps it's time to move on from all of this, because that's what my constituents are saying down in Kent or wherever it is. That would be helpful. If she can't be helpful, she's best be silent. Most of them actually have fought battles in the past. They fought battles over Brexit, which they lost. A lot of this is just to do with Brexit. A lot of it is to do with wanting to get rid of the Prime Minister that brought us Brexit. A lot of it is to do with getting revenge. And with a bit of luck, they're not going to succeed.